Make no mistake about it, people. This is, admittedly, quite sad. But at the same time, if you're an Anaheim Ducks fan, it doesn't really seem that sad. I don't know, y'all have been doing very well this season, so it's very easy to get caught up in the momentum and just say, hey, things are looking pretty good. Why do we have to care about this? But ultimately, part of the reason the Anaheim Ducks have been so good this season is because of the youth. Guys have really stepped up and provided value that we may not have expected at this stage of their careers. Leo Carlsson, Cutter Gauthier, Beckett Seneca, Mason McTavish, all doing fantastically well. And then on defense, you've got some of the veterans really making a big impact there too. Jacob Trouba is awesome. I think really there's a little more that you could want out of a guy like Olen Zellweger or a Radko Gudas, for example. But one of the guys that is a younger guy that hasn't really been given the best shot this season, and maybe it's rightfully deserved because of the way he has played so far, is Pavel Mintyukov. Mintyukov, however you want to pronounce it. There's some nuance there depending on where you place the emphasis on the vowels. But Pavel Mintyukov was a former top-round pick by the Ducks in 2022, 10th overall guy. 6'1", 207, left-handed defenseman, and he was quite noted back in his draft-eligible campaign because of what he was able to do in the OHL. Mintyukov was a pretty big and offensively productive Russian defenseman who had just made his debut in Canada after being a stud in Russia. He didn't really display the best development because COVID kind of messed everything up and he didn't really have much production before that, but Mintyukov ended up becoming the 4th defenseman taken in that draft. A guy who was literally a top 10 player, so that kind of tells you where defense was in 2022. Nemec, Jiricek, Korchinski, then Mintyukov. Following up later, you had Denton Mateychuk and Leon Bichelle and a bunch of other dudes. But Mintyukov has been pretty solid in Anaheim the past few years. In particular, his rookie Anaheim season saw him put up 28 points in 63 games played at the ripe old age of 19. That's really, really strong. And considering the fact that the Anaheim Ducks back in that time frame were still kind of retooling, still kind of rebuilding, still getting younger, just allowing these teenagers and whatnot to make their presence known on the team, they weren't really that great in 2024, so Mintyukov getting a half a point a game production in his rookie year was a big staple for the future of Anaheim. The next season, though, he declined in points, and the season after he has declined even more. He went from 28 points to 19, all the way to 3 points in 18 games this year, on pace for about 13 points if he had played 80 total games. The reason I say 80 is because Mintyukov has gotten healthy scratched the past few games. And there was a little bit more on this posted about by Elliotte Friedman on the Written 32 Thoughts article from this morning. This piece dives into Bedard, Celebrini, and even Matthew Schaefer and how they've been so good at this point of the year. But there is a conversation about Mintyukov that is written about here. It's the 8th thought on this piece, which will be linked in the description, by the way. After back-to-back healthy scratches, word filtered that Ducks defenseman Pavel Mintyukov would like to be moved if he's not going to play. He's fallen behind Jackson Lacombe and Olen Zellweger on the left side of Anaheim's defense. Ian Moore, who had a strong camp, was elevated in Mintyukov's place. This is the 10th overall pick in the 2022 draft, so Ducks GM Pat Verbeek will not be rushed into anything. Something to keep an eye on. Now, something to keep an eye on indeed. We can dive into the 2022 draft and look at the most realistic comp for Mintyukov if you wanted to talk about a trade. Literally the guy taken just 4 picks before Mintyukov in the draft, David Jiricek. Same draft season, same position, defenseman. Jiricek is a right-handed guy. Mintyukov is a lefty, but Jiricek was also traded from Columbus over to Minnesota. Circumstances were a little bit different because Jiricek never had that full coming-out season in the NHL like Mintyukov did, where he was super good. But David Jiricek did get sent over to Mini in a pretty, I'm just going to say, insignificant trade. David Jiricek was a top 10 pick, but he got sent over to Minnesota in exchange for Damon Hunt and futures. I mean, that's not really a lot. And Columbus also traded away a fifth in that deal. So it certainly wasn't the mainstay top 10 prospect caliber-like package that you would have expected if you had heard, oh, a top 6 overall guy ended up getting traded. What was he traded for? Keep in mind that this trade that went down was just a few seasons after the draft had concluded anyway. It was 2 years removed, pretty much. So if Mintyukov is in a spot to get traded, I think he probably gets a lot more than Damon Hunt and future draft picks. He probably even demands a first-round pick because there already has been a proven element of success in his game at the NHL level. That's the one thing that he has that David Jiricek still has not been able to establish for himself. All's that to say is that Mintyukov, I think, is a lot more valuable than Jiricek was when Jiricek got traded. But there also is the perspective of the Anaheim Ducks. Let's go out there and read what some commenters on the Ducks subreddit have to say about this trade update from Elliotte Friedman. It seems fair. I think most young players would be in the same boat. Anyway, I'm doubtful anything is imminent, but I think we all knew this year that it would be the last for either him or Zellweger. Until recently, I would have thought Zellweger was the certainty to be moved, but here we are. Either way, they're both second-pairing guys playing pretty much the same role. One or both are likely to leave sooner rather than later, especially with Solberg in the wings waiting as well. Another reply, this one from Snow Ninja, says that, hey, I don't really blame Mintyukov. He has been a consistent part of our lineup for years and now getting healthy scratched in his contract year. It's unfortunate for him, and I think him wanting to play is reasonable. However, Verbeek is going to be mad that Minty's agent chose to leak the info. That makes it harder for us to get value for him. Really not sure what his value is at this point to begin with, though. Although, for me personally, if I had to guess, I'd probably say maybe just a first-round pick. Not anything too extraordinary, but like maybe a first and, I don't know, a fourth or another prospect that's really not that important. Mostly because, like, yeah, he was a first-rounder, he was a top 10 guy. That would generally fetch a very good return, but at the same time, you look at the player that Mintyukov has become, and he's not necessarily winning spots over other guys with the Anaheim Ducks so far. Now, I get that the Ducks have been good, and it's hard to fully break onto that squad if you're just on the edge there, but for Mintyukov, you're thinking about it like, yeah, if we trade away a first-round pick, let's say a 20th overall pick, for example, if that guy can become like a Mintyukov, I think we're probably not over the moon ecstatic with it, but we're lukewarm with it. The fact that Mintyukov has declined in point production and had taken a step back when Jackson Lacombe came in does hurt his value. I think we need to acknowledge that. If it was just the 19-year-old guy who was half a point a game in 60 games, then yeah, okay, that guy's probably worth a lot more than just a regular old first. Maybe we're talking about 2 firsts and another decent prospect for that. Mintyukov's value has declined, but now it's gotten to the point where after some healthy scratches, seems like he could be on the cusp of asking out. With that in mind, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Pavel Mintyukov and this trade update from Elliotte Friedman? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.